Okay, I'm going to get started by welcoming everyone. Welcome to Wat Tung Yu. Nice to see you guys all here. Welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. Today is our group learning program where we start out with meditation, and then I'm going to share a talk with you about the Eightfold Path. This is the path to enlightenment. This is the core central teaching of the Buddha. If you're interested in getting to this enlightened mental state that the Buddha taught, you would need to know this teaching inside and out. So I'm going to share this teaching with you guys, helping you guys to understand what he taught. The enlightened mental state is where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you will no longer experience any discontent feelings. You will eliminate all the causes and conditions that are producing things like anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All of this can be eliminated from the mind through training of the mind. And it's the Eightfold Path that's going to help you to be able to do that. There's more than just meditation that you would need in order to be able to get to enlightenment, but because meditation is important, we start each one of our classes with meditation. So if you'd like to join for the meditation, the way that I start is with some chanting, where I'm chanting in order to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. If you'd like to chant along, we have the chants on a sheet over there on the cabinet. You're welcome to help yourself and get one. For those of you guys online, you'll find this on our website at buddhadailywisdom.com. You can click on free books and then just scroll down towards the middle and you'll see the chanting sheet there. These chants are something that we use in order to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. But during the lifetime of the Buddha, chanting was used as a learning tool or as a learning device, that he used it in order to help people to commit the teachings to memory. Every 2 weeks, his students would come together and they would recite his teachings orally. This is how they would remember the teachings. So it's important to understand that there's nothing mystical or magical with these chants. This isn't a rite, ritual, ceremony, worship, or prayer, or anything like that. There's none of those kinds of things associated with the teachings of the Buddha. If you're seeing those kinds of things associated with the Buddha's teachings, those aren't his teachings. Those are misunderstandings. So we use these chants just to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself, because we don't need to chant in order to remember the teachings any longer the way that they did during the lifetime of the Buddha. If you read the English translations, you'll see a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for the Buddha. And because of that, I don't think the Buddha even created these chants himself. They were probably created by his students, either during his life or after his death. Because if you learned from a teacher how to move from anger, sadness, and frustration and all these other feelings to the peaceful and joyful mental state that is enlightenment, and this teacher didn't want anything from you or expect anything from you, they were just helping you out of the kindness of their heart, you might actually have a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for that person too. So that's why I think these actually came from his students, because the Buddha wouldn't have walked around and said, here, chant these chants to me out of respect for me, right? This would be ego or arrogance. And by the time you get to enlightenment, you've eliminated that. So you're welcome to chant along, and you'll see that it actually helps you to get more benefit out of the meditation. After the chanting, I'm going to come in with some guidance where I'm essentially going to be teaching you and instructing you how to meditate while we're actually meditating together. Then there's going to be a period of time of quietness where it's just quiet and we're all meditating. Everyone here at the temple and anyone joining online. Now, during this period of time of quietness, I'm sure you're going to hear occasional sounds. You might hear a car go by, a dog barking, a bird chirping, someone here might cough or sneeze. This is all normal. That if you're in meditation with a craving for permanent silence, when you hear a sound during your meditation, it'll cause your mind to be annoyed or frustrated or irritated or some other discontent feeling. That's what's causing these discontent feelings, is that the mind is craving permanence. And oftentimes people will crave permanent silence in meditation, where you live in an impermanent world. Things are constantly changing. So you're not going to be able to meditate in an environment where it's permanently quiet. So if you're in meditation, understanding that the world is impermanent and it's unwise to crave permanence, now when you hear a sound, you can just rest at ease and understand that's the way that the world works, that these things are going to arise, they're going to change, and then they're going to fade away. After the period of time of quietness, we're going to come out of that with some more chanting, and then that's where I'll start today's class, helping you guys to understand the Eightfold Path. In terms of your body position for the meditation, there's 4 positions that the Buddha taught: seated, lying, standing, and walking. And you would learn these different positions at different times. And it's kind of like creating a tool belt, and you would employ these different positions to be able to help you in your journey to enlightenment. We have various courses and classes and retreats that'll help you to be able to understand that. And it's all available for you at no cost. But today what I'll do is I'll just introduce you to the seated position so that maybe you can find something that's even more comfortable than what you're currently using. But just know in the future, you might decide to learn these other positions. You could be sitting on the floor in a chair. Maybe if you're at home, you're on a bench or a sofa or in a wheelchair. You can really sit however you like. There's not just one way to sit because that would be permanence, and we live in an impermanent world. Everybody's going to find different things to be comfortable. But if you're on the floor, you might use some of these suggestions or come up with something on your own. Same thing with those of you in a chair. You might use some of these things that I share with you, but feel free to sit however you like. These are just recommendations or suggestions for you to consider. That if you're on the floor, you might have some cushions under your rear. This will kind of help soften your seat a bit. And if you're going to bring your legs together in the cross-leg position, you might just choose to do that lightly. Whereas if they're real tight, it can impede the circulation in your lower body and cause pain. Some people like to put their legs off the mat, where this lifts your hips up in the air, and it helps you to reduce the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, allowing the circulation to flow. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. If this is comfortable for you, you could use it, but it's not about everyone doing it the same way, because again, that would be permanence. There's other options here. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or on their knees. Some people put their palms up. Some people rest their hands comfortably in their lap. So you can put your hands and arms wherever you like. And the same thing's true for anyone sitting in a chair or on a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair. You can also sit however you like. Some people like to put their feet flat on the floor or lightly cross at the ankles, but you can see me sitting in a chair with my legs crossed, so this is an option for you too. And then you can put your hands and arms wherever you like. In terms of your upper body, it's helpful if this is erect. With the sternum up and the shoulders back, it'll help keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation. Whereas if you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you're real rigid with the upper body, the mind could be overactive or uptight. Where this is meditation is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities. So you would like the mind to be attentive and alert during the meditation. So having the sternum up and shoulders back will help you with that. And it'll also help you to breathe easily through the nose as you're meditating. So again, I'm going to chant in order to ease into the meditation. You guys are welcome to join in, and then I'm going to come back in with the guidance. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakewa Bhutang Mahakewanang Apiwateyami Sawakato Mahakewata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakewato Sawakasangko Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sagato Rokawitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma sati sata tawa manusarang Poto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect. Just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathe in gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเขวาพุทธังมหาเขวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาเขวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเขวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินับโมรัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมรัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมรัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหาเขวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิจาจารณังสัมมุโนสกาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, good morning to all of you guys. Nice to see everyone here. Good morning to everyone who's joining online as well. As I was sharing at the beginning, the individual who we refer to as the Buddha figured out how to get to this mental state where you can train your mind to the point where it's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you will no longer experience any discontent feelings. You will have eliminated the causes and conditions that are producing feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All of this can be eliminated from the mind by training the mind. The Buddha figured out these 10 individual pollutions that are in the mind, and he figured out the tools and techniques of how to eliminate those out of the mind. And when you do, not only will you experience these qualities that I just mentioned, but you'll notice that your mind's focused. You have concentration, clarity, and deep memory. Where when you have these pollutions in your mind, you'll be hindered from those kinds of qualities. You'll maybe lack focus, concentration, clarity, and deep memory. By the time you get to enlightenment, your personal, professional relationships will really be blossoming. They'll be at ease because you won't have this bitterness and harshness and hostility in your mind anymore. Where in the unenlightened state, you'll have a certain amount of that, and you'll think it's coming from other people and that it's other people that are causing you to do this, but it's actually your own mind that's causing this. This is why you can eliminate it. And when you eliminate putting out that bitterness, harshness, and hostility in your relationships, you'll notice that it won't be coming back to you any longer. Because if you look at those relationships where you're bitter, harsh, and hostile, those people are also bitter and harsh and hostile to you too. It's coming right back to you. So you can actually eliminate all of that. You can get to the point where you don't even experience a bad mood any longer. And the thing that's going to help you to be able to accomplish this is this core central teaching of the Buddha called the Eightfold Path. This is what I'm going to be sharing with you today to be able to help you understand the entire path to enlightenment. Because sometimes people think that the Buddha sat under a tree, he meditated, and then instantly got to enlightenment. And this isn't actually true. there's multiple factors to this path that you need to be able to learn and understand in order to be able to move your mind to enlightenment. You wouldn't be able to meditate your way to enlightenment. It's gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress that leads you to enlightenment. And it's important that you don't believe any of the teachings. There's no belief in the Buddha's teachings whatsoever. He's not teaching you to believe a bunch of things and then hope something good happens when you die. He's teaching you how to learn and grow and develop in this life, to cultivate wisdom. And as you do, and you do this inner work, this inner growth, and this inner development, you can experience more and more improvement in your day-to-day life. Essentially, what the path to enlightenment is to become a better and better human being. So I'm going to teach you guys this eightfold path. It's 8 individual factors that are going to guide you in training your mind. It's right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. It's organized into these 3 sections of wisdom, moral conduct, and mental discipline. One of the ways you might think about this is it's kind of like if you had a speaker system and you had 8 individual dials and you were trying to get a better quality sound out of the speakers, you might dial this in closer and closer, tweaking these 8 individual dials in order to get a better and better quality sound out of the speakers. Well, your mind is the same way. You've got these 8 individual dials that are going to help you to be able to hone in your mind and actually experience more control and discipline of your mind to the point where you never experience any anger, sadness, frustration in others. So as I walk you through this, I'm going to be pausing a few times, opening up for questions that you guys might have, because the Buddha teaches you to learn with eager ears, that you're actively learning his teachings. If you're just sitting back and letting the teachings roll over your head, you're not going to ever be able to learn them deeply enough to actually be able to practice them to then experience the transformation and the results that you can experience based in his teachings. So I'm going to be pausing to see what questions you guys have. If you're here at the temple and you'd like to ask questions, we have microphones in the white bowl there in the center of the room, and we have some up here as well. All you need to do is get a microphone, take it back to your seat, press the gray button. You're going to see the lights come on, and you can hold that up to your chin, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online as well. If you speak here without a microphone, they won't be able to hear you online. And then you can keep these microphones with you because you might have more than one question, or someone around you might have a question and you would like to share your microphone with them. And then if you're not using it, if you could turn it off, that'll help us to not get feedback through the speakers. And then for anybody who's online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section, or in Zoom, you can raise your hand electronically and I'll be able to call on you and you can ask your question that way. So I'm going to walk you through this entire path. It starts with right view. And I actually taught this last week because it takes a fair amount of time to teach this entire path. So last week I taught right view. And I'm just going to give you guys a little bit of a summary of that because some of you guys weren't here last week, and that's okay. I'll just kind of help you to understand as an overview of what right view is. But you would like to go back and deeply study it. We're going to spend most of our time on all the other factors and walking you through that. So what the Buddha teaches as part of right view, these are his actual words, because when you study the teachings of the Buddha, you like to study with his original words. I know that sounds pretty obvious to some of you, like of course you would study the Buddha's original words if you're going to study his teachings, but the vast majority of the world who considers what they're doing to be Buddhist, they actually don't study with his original words. So you would like to get a reliable, trustworthy copy of the original words of the Buddha so that you can actually study with his original words. And that's what I'm using here to be able to help you see what he actually taught. That this is what he taught as part of right view. He says, in what, monks, is right view? It is, monks, the wisdom of discontentedness, the wisdom of the cause of discontentedness, the wisdom of the elimination of discontentedness, and the wisdom of the way of practice leading to the elimination of discontentedness. This is called right view. So what he does here is he points to another teaching that he has, because the Eightfold Path is a core central teaching that everything else plugs into. He's pointing to the Four Noble Truths here. This line here shows the top section underneath of it of the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths goes on from here, but I just put this in here so that you can build confidence that what he's talking about as right view is the Four Noble Truths. And then what I typically do is I thoroughly teach students the Four Noble Truths. But today we're just going to do a slight little overview. The Four Noble Truths, in order to understand those, you need to first understand the 3 universal truths. And I walk students through to help them understand this and independently verify it. Because what the Buddha is teaching you is how the world is. He's not teaching you the way the world should be. He's not teaching you rules and commandments. He's not teaching you a bunch of beliefs or opinions or views. He's not teaching rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and prayer. If you're seeing all these kinds of things associated with the teachings of the Buddha, those aren't his teachings. He's helping you to be able to cultivate wisdom. When we talk about awakening to enlightenment, that's what it means, is to cultivate wisdom. And when you cultivate wisdom, you need to learn, investigate, and examine something. You need to reflect on it to independently verify if it's true or false. And then you need to practice it, integrating it into your day-to-day life and making decisions through that wisdom. And that's where you'll see the transformation occurring in your day-to-day life. So that's why I usually go through this very thoroughly, and that's what I did last week. So with this first universal truth, it helps you understand that the world's constantly changing, that everything around you is impermanent. And you can independently verify this through looking in your life and seeing that everything that you can see, hear, smell, taste, anything that touches the body, or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind, this is all impermanent. It's constantly changing. Then the second universal truth, the Buddha is explaining the unenlightened mind. He's explaining that you experience conditioned feelings of pleasant feelings, painful feelings, or feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant. These are what's called conditioned feelings, that based on some condition, you will then experience a feeling. So for example, if you look outside and you see it's sunny and you get happy about that, that's a conditioned, pleasant feeling, that based on the condition that it's sunny outside, you will then be happy. But the problem with that is that the sun is not permanent. So that means your happiness is not permanent. If you've based your happiness on the sun, that means when it changes to rain, you'll be sad or frustrated. This is why you haven't been able to get to permanent happiness and permanent joy, because the mind experiences conditioned feelings. If you get really happy and excited when your bank account balance is up here, that means when it goes down here, you'll be sad and frustrated, because that's a conditioned feeling, that based on the condition that your bank account balance is here, you'll be happy. But then when it goes down here, you'll be sad or frustrated. The only thing that's happening here is change. But the unenlightened mind doesn't understand the universal truth of impermanence. It doesn't have that wisdom to understand that everything around you is constantly changing. And then these painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant feelings, are also conditioned feelings. So I helped people to understand this. Then we talked about the universal truth of non-self, which is actually a solution to one of the problems that the Buddha discovered in the mind. One of the things that the unenlightened mind does is it holds on to this self-image or this self-identity in your mind, thinking that this is who you are. Then you want to be perceived by others in a certain way. So if you've ever spilled something on your clothing, and you were embarrassed in this situation, this is because you're clinging to this body, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. And you can only feel comfortable if you're being perceived that way. Or say maybe you looked in a mirror and you saw a wrinkle or a pimple or a mole or a gray hair, or you started losing your hair. If you were shaken up by this, this is your personal existence view. The mind clinging to this body, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way, and only feeling comfortable to interact with people when you're being perceived the way you want to be perceived. The mind does the same thing with your self-identity based on your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, your job or occupation. You can cling to any number of things of who you think you are as a person. So for example, if I clung to I am American, or maybe you're clinging to I am Chinese, or I am Canadian, or I am Lithuanian, or I am Mexican, or any of this I am. If you're at a restaurant and 2 tables over, people are speaking fondly about your nationality that you're holding on to in your mind, you'll be really happy and excited about that. Because they're talking about you, and that's the way your mind perceives this, that they're saying all Americans are lovely and kind and warm and gentle, and now you're so excited about that because you think they're talking about you, right? But then it's only a matter of time, because of impermanence, that somebody says something negative and degrading and disrespectful about the nationality that you have, and now you're angry or frustrated or sad. The teachings of the Buddha aren't about going out into the world and changing other people and forcing other people to do things your way. It's about training your mind and understanding that there's people in the world who are polite, kind, friendly, and respectful, But because of impermanence, there are some people who are impolite, unkind, unfriendly, and disrespectful. And when you encounter that, if you're craving permanence where you want everybody to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful, you'll be angry or frustrated when you experience people who are being impolite, unkind, unfriendly, and disrespectful. So you can train your mind to let go of this personal existence view where you're clinging to this idea or this notion of who you think you are as a person. And this is what we call realizing non-self. And there's more for you to learn on all three of these, but this is just a little bit of an overview to help you get an overview of the Four Noble Truths. There's this word in these series of words that you need to understand also to understand the Four Noble Truths, that there's something in your mind in the unenlightened state called craving, desire, attachment. Wants and expectation, the mind's longing, yearning, chasing after the objects of your affection. The mind thinks that the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some lasting satisfaction. So the mind chases it and chases it and chases it and chases it. It's almost like an unquenchable thirst that the mind has, where maybe you were in the mall and you saw a brand new pair of shoes or a new video game or some jewelry or a new phone or a computer or something like this. And you're like, oh, I just gotta have that. Oh my gosh, I want those shoes so bad. I want them on my feet, right? The mind's just longing, yearning for this. Or maybe it's like, oh, I just wish I had a boyfriend or girlfriend. I really want a boyfriend or girlfriend so bad. Oh, I want more money. Let me get some more money. Oh, that's going to fix everything in my life. The mind just longs and yearns. It's never happy or content with what it's got. It always wants something else. It's like the grass is greener on the other side, and the mind is chasing it and chasing it and chasing it. Are you guys familiar with what I'm talking about here? Have you seen this in your mind, where your mind's longing and yearning for things, thinking something external is going to provide lasting satisfaction? So the mind chases it and chases it and chases it. Okay? So once you understand what craving, desire, attachment is, how the mind's longing, yearning, now you can have a breakthrough to understanding what is causing your discontent feelings. Because if you go around the world thinking that it's other people that are causing these feelings in your mind, you will never eliminate them. You will think it's other people causing you to be angry or frustrated or sad or some other discontent feeling, where you can learn the Four Noble Truths and you can see that it's your own mind that's causing this. So the first noble truth is explaining the problem that everyone in the unenlightened state will experience discontentedness. This is the problem that the Buddha discovered that each unenlightened being is experiencing, that the mind is happy and excited, but then it's sad and frustrated. Then it's irritated and annoyed. Then you experience embarrassment and shyness. The mind's going up and down and up and down because of these conditioned feelings, that the mind isn't calm and steady and stable. So this is the problem that each unenlightened being is experiencing. And when your mind is shaken up like this, you can't make wise decisions, and you will put out unwise decisions, and now you'll experience unwholesome results in your day-to-day life. And what the mind tends to do when you experience unwholesome results in your day-to-day life is blame other people for those results, where in reality it's actually coming from your own decision making. But people tend to blame this on good luck or bad luck or destiny or fate or a being like God or the entity called the universe that people think is controlling what they experience. Or people will blame it on other people, when in reality it's your own decisions that are leading to any particular result that you experience in your day-to-day life. So this is the problem that each unenlightened being is experiencing. Then the second noble truth is explaining the cause of this problem, that these discontent feelings are caused by craving, desire, attachment, the mind longing, yearning, chasing after the objects of its affection. It craves for things to be permanent, when in reality everything is impermanent. So you can see this if you've been in a relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend. When you guys broke up, you were maybe upset or angry or frustrated, where when you first got together, you were so happy, right? But then when you guys broke up, you were sad or frustrated. And you might think that that was your love, but in reality, it was your craving for permanence, that the mind was holding on to this relationship, thinking that it was permanent and wanting it to be permanent, longing, yearning for it to be permanent, where it was always impermanent from the very beginning. But the mind didn't have that wisdom of the universal truth of impermanence. You can see this if you've had someone close to you die. It's the same thing. That as long as grandma and grandpa are alive, the mind's getting what it wants, so therefore it's happy. But when you don't get what you want, the mind is angry or sad or frustrated. Think back to when we were a child and we were craving chocolate and ice cream. If our parents gave it to us, we were really happy and excited about that. But if they didn't give us that chocolate and ice cream, we were angry and frustrated. That's because the mind's craving permanence. As long as the mind's getting what it wants, it experiences the pleasant feelings of happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. But if the mind doesn't get what it wants, it gets those painful feelings or the neither painful nor pleasant feelings. So maybe if you had a brand new car and you drove it off the parking lot and you parked it at a store and you went inside and you came out and you saw a scratch on your car, if you get angry and frustrated in that situation, it's not the scratch that's causing it. And it's not the person who scratched your car. It's the mind craving permanence. The mind wants this car to be permanently beautiful, where in reality, it's impossible for this car to be permanently beautiful. The paint's going to fade. The upholstery is going to get ripped and torn. This car is going to change. And with your mind craving permanence, you'll be uncomfortable and experience painful feelings when you're experiencing that impermanence. You can see that if you showed up to an airport, so excited to go on a trip, and your flight's delayed or canceled. The mind might be frustrated or agitated or annoyed. This is because of the craving for permanence. The mind wants every airplane to take off on time, where in reality, it's not possible. There's going to be a maintenance issue, a crew issue, a weather issue. A plane is not going to take off on time every single time, but that's what the mind wants, and that's what it expects. That's what it's longing, yearning for. Every airplane that I schedule a ticket for, I want it to take off on time. And when you show up and it's delayed or canceled, you'll cause your mind to be frustrated or annoyed. So what I'm sharing here, the second noble truth, it is that your own mind that's causing these feelings. And you need to be able to see this truth for yourself. You can't believe what I'm sharing with you. You can't believe what the Buddha taught in his teachings because his teachings aren't based in belief. You need to independently verify it. So what I suggest you do is take a moment right now and think about a recent time when you've been angry or frustrated or sad or some other discontent feeling. It could have been this morning or yesterday or last week. Look at that situation. What was it that your mind was longing, yearning for? What were you expecting and wanting? And if you would have gotten it, you would have been happy. But because you didn't get what you wanted, your mind was angry or sad or frustrated. If you can see this, this is great, because then you can have a breakthrough to being able to see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. You don't need to feel guilty or shameful about this, because every being that's ever been born has experienced this, including the Buddha. He experienced this too, but he figured out what it was that was causing these feelings, and then he shared it with people to be able to help them overcome it. So when we get to the question time, if you have difficulty seeing that it's your own mind causing these feelings, let me know, because I will help you. There's been plenty of people over the years that have needed help, and I will help you too. Because once you understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, then the third noble truth is very empowering, because what the third noble truth is explaining to you is that there's a solution for this, that you can eliminate your discontent feelings by eliminating the cravings, desires, attachments, the mind longing, yearning, and chasing after the objects of its affection. You can change that. It is not permanent. That anger and sadness, it's not permanent. You don't have to keep walking around like that. You can train your mind to get to the point where you don't experience that. It's like evolving to a higher consciousness, becoming a better and better human being where you no longer experience that. It's like evolving as a species, just like a snake or a lizard or another animal can evolve as a species. Human beings can evolve too, but you can't do that without wisdom. So that's why the Buddha is sharing this with you. And the fourth noble truth is explaining to you that the solution to eliminating this 100% is the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path is the complete perfect plan that's going to guide you in being able to understand how to eliminate these discontent feelings. But it starts with right view. Because what right view is helping you to be able to see is that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. As long as somebody went around blaming other people for the feelings that they're experiencing, then they'll never actually have the wisdom to realize that they need to do this inner work, this inner growth, this inner development to heal. Because what the mind typically does when it has wrong view is it blames other people for the feelings that they're experiencing. And then what an individual will tend to do is it'll push people away, or it'll push the situation away. This is called aversion, where you might have pushed away friends or family out of your life. Or you might be bitter and harsh and hostile to people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. And this is damaging your relationships because it's only a matter of time before you encounter someone who does things differently than you. Or the third thing you might do when you don't understand that it's your own mind causing these feelings is you might put your expectations on people and try to pressure them to do things your way. So you can actually evolve past this where you're no longer pushing people away, being bitter, harsh, and hostile, or putting your expectations on people. Because it's only a matter of time before you encounter someone who doesn't do things your way because of impermanence. But the mind in the unenlightened state has a certain amount of ego where it thinks my way is the right way and everybody else's way is the wrong way. And now an individual will go around and try to get everybody to do things your way. But the problem with this is there's 8 billion people in the world. You can't train 8 billion people to do things your way. It's impossible. But you can train one mind to be able to experience the peace and joy. Do you know whose mind you can train? Yourself, right? That's the only mind that you actually have the ability to train. You can't train other people. It's not possible. They have to decide on their own that they would like to experience something different in their life. So this path to enlightenment is about doing this inner work, this inner growth, this inner development, and training your own mind. So I'm going to pause here before we go on because this was just a real quick overview to help you understand right view. Is there anyone that has questions on right view, either here or online? Anything you guys would like to ask? Yes, ma'am.
So I have an example of yesterday. I had a tennis class with a coach, and it's a new coach that it was the first class with him. And before that, I had a different classes with other coach, and they were very good. But yesterday, the one I find that he maybe his English is not really good and his instruction is not clear. So I was frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I'm expecting he to use my right way to teach me, but he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I find it, after listening to what you said, I feel like I shouldn't expect, but I pay for him and I want to improve.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like contradict with my purpose.
Sure.
So
right. So what you need to be able to do is understand what's causing your feelings, but that doesn't mean that you do nothing about it, right? So if you understand that it's not this person who's causing you to be frustrated, now you can train your mind to let go of that craving, desire, attachment. But if for you, you need this trainer to be able to speak in English and to speak to you in a better way that you can learn, now you can calmly talk to the business and request a different trainer rather than being bitter and harsh and hostile and, complaining and all of this kind of stuff, which is just going to produce unwholesome results for you. Instead, you can do it politely and respectfully because now you understand there's this craving that's in your mind. You can cut that off, which I'm going to teach you as part of the mental discipline. You can cut that off and let it go. But now you can use the moral conduct to speak in a way that is going to produce results for you where you can have the trainer that you need. So on one side, an individual would be craving and longing, yearning and angry and upset that they're not getting what they want. On the other side, an individual is just like, I don't care, whatever. And now maybe you've wasted some resources that you had, some money, right? Neither of those two extremes is what the Buddha is teaching you. He's teaching you to come to the middle, where you can maintain your calmness and composure, and now you can make wise decisions to acquire the things that you need based on your needs, not your wants and your longing, yearning, but instead, what is it that I need here? Now you can do that politely and respectfully.
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, I don't see any other questions. So we're going to move into... Oh, you have a question? Yes, ma'am.
Nothing is permanent, but for a relationship, for example, between parents and kid, that's just something we cannot say is permanent or temporary, because yes, we can cut off the relationship we don't want, we can cut off the friends, we can cut off the lover, but for parents who just wanted to I want to be better. So they give you a lot of pressure. and it's not impossible to cut off the relationship between parents and the kid, but it's really hard. And if you cut it, you will feel guilty. And but every time when your parents ask you for like everything's for the best, I want a better phone, you bought it for me, I want to be better, I'm not like I don't feel good at you, you're not a good kid, but how can I do that?
Yeah. So what you're describing is attachment, that your parents have a certain expectation, something they want from you. And they think the way that they're going to get to happiness is for you to do things their way, right? So they're putting their expectations on you. Because what I shared is if you're not getting what you want, you either push people away, be bitter, harsh, or hostile, or put expectations on people. So your parents are putting expectations on you, and now your mind is adopting those for yourself, instead of realizing, no, that's mom and dad's expectations. I don't have to conform to that. They're trying to get me to do things their way, but I get to live my life my way, and they get to live their life their way. So when you're talking about feeling guilty by cutting off a relationship and things like that, that's because of your attachment. That's because of your craving, holding on and wanting this relationship to be permanent, where in reality, this relationship is impermanent. You and your parents are going to separate at some point. Either they're going to die or you're going to die. The relationship's going to be over at some point. So whether you choose to continue to be in a relationship with your parents or not, that's a choice for you to make. I would never tell you whether you should or shouldn't be with them, but it's possible to end a relationship with a parent and choose to move on if someone's not interested in a relationship with their parents. You know, some parents even abuse their children so significantly, it's unwise for a child to be in a relationship with their parents, and they need to move on from the relationship. But even in a relationship where everything's going wonderful with your parents, that relationship is not permanent. It is impermanent. But it's your mind holding on, craving for it to be permanent, which causes the guilt and which is causing your pressure. You're putting that pressure on yourself. The parents aren't doing it. The parents are putting expectations on you, but it's your mind adopting those expectations and putting pressure on yourself. I'll share a short story with you where I learned this. My family came to me when I was 17 years old, and they said, David, you're spending too much time with your guy friends. We think you should have a girlfriend, and you're spending too much time with your guy friends. So I thought about it for a few months, and I was like, you know what? All right, let me go get a girlfriend. So I went and got a girlfriend, and I started spending time with her. And my family came to me, and they said, David, you're spending too much time with your girlfriend. You should spend time with us, right? And I was like, man, you can't make these people happy, right? And I went to them and I said, you know what? My goal in life is not to make you happy. My goal is not to meet your expectations. I'm going to live my life the way that I would like to live it, right? And they didn't like that, of course. They were angry by that. And they still tried to put their expectations on me. They still tried to control me, but I didn't allow my mind to adopt their expectations. I decided I was my own independent person, and I'm going to make decisions in my own way. And from that moment, life just got better and better and better and better. The more you try to adopt and conform to your parents' expectations, you're going to be living your life according to them, and you're not going to be happy with that life. You need to create the life that you would like to live for yourself. So you got to get rid of those expectations you're putting on yourself, because that's what's going to help you to get rid of that pressure and that stress and that guilt that you're experiencing. And I'm going to teach you how to do that when we get to the mental discipline section. That's what's going to teach you how to get rid of all of that. Okay? All right. So we're going to keep on going here. Oh, we have a question in Zoom. Let me see. All right. Looks like Frank is asking a question. Dear teacher, is it correct to say that discontent arises from craving, desire, and attachment to the 5 aggregates? Yes, the mind clings to the 5 aggregates, and that's what is causing this. Put another way, are there things other than the 5 aggregates that an unenlightened being craves, desires, and attached to? Thank you. It's the 5 aggregates, but in a basic class like this, I don't teach the 5 aggregates. That's something that people learn about later. So here I'm just teaching craving, desire, attachment in general. And then as students study more deeply, we teach about the 5 aggregates. Okay, let me see here. All right, no more questions here. So now we can move into right intention. Okay, so right intention is the second step. The Buddha says, in what, monks, is right intention? The intention of renunciation, the intention of non-ill will, the intention of harmlessness. This is called right intention. So some people translate this as right thinking or right thought. I use right intention because the mind needs to build this intention or this thinking or this thought of these three things. The intention of renunciation is to be willing to let go of your false ideas, false beliefs, false opinions, and false views, as well as your unwholesomeness, because there's a certain amount of unwholesome moral conduct that every unenlightened being is practicing. If you were to hold on to all of these things, you would never be able to cultivate the mind and develop the mind to be able to overcome that and be able to get to enlightenment. So one of the first false ideas, false beliefs, false opinions, and false views that you need to eliminate is the opinion or the view or the belief that it's other people who are causing you to be angry and frustrated. You need to eliminate that. You need to be able to see that that's not true. So what the intention of renunciation is not that you're getting rid of your false beliefs and you're bringing in new beliefs. You're actually bringing in wisdom. And when you see the truth and you have that wisdom and you see it conflicts with things that you've believed your entire life, you need to be willing to renunciate or let those beliefs go. As long as you hold on to beliefs, you'll never get to enlightenment. Because with belief, you don't know what's true or false. You're just believing it. Where what you need to be able to do is get to wisdom. Belief is something that someone either convinced you to believe or you convinced yourself to believe it. You need to get to the point where you have wisdom. So you're bringing in this wisdom and be willing to let go of these false ideas, false beliefs, false opinions, and false views. Essentially, what you're doing is you're keeping an open mind and realizing that you don't know everything there is to know about the world right now. If you experience anger, sadness, frustration, and all these other feelings, there's certain wisdom about this world that you don't currently understand, and you need to just admit that to yourself because the ego is going to be in there trying to convince you otherwise. And now when you see that you lack wisdom, now you're willing to renunciate your false ideas, false opinions, false views. And then you need to be willing to let go of your unwholesome moral conduct because there's a certain amount of moral conduct that you're putting out that is unwise. And now as you put that out, it's all coming back to you. Then there's the intention of non-ill will, which is actually goodwill, which is loving kindness. Because in English, whenever you see a double negative, like non-ill will, this is a positive. It means goodwill. Then you've got the intention of harmlessness, which is where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm. So you need to cultivate this in the mind because this is going to motivate your speech, your actions, and your livelihood. If you don't have this as a basis of wisdom to build on top of, you wouldn't be motivated to be able to actually practice things like right speech, right action, and right livelihood. So here, just a little bit of a summary for you, is the Four Noble Truths is accepting responsibility for your own feelings, intentions, speech, and actions. Understanding that it's craving, desire, attachment that's causing these feelings. It's not the outside world. It's not other people. It's physically impossible for someone to insert a feeling into your mind. It's not possible. It's your own mind that's producing these feelings, but the mind lacks that wisdom. So you need to be able to independently verify that for yourself. And then once you understand that, then you know that you need to do this inner work, this inner growth, this inner development. And one of the things that you need is to practice right intention, where you're willing to let go of your false ideas, false opinions, false views, and your unwholesomeness. That's the intention of renunciation. Then you need to have the intention of non-ill will or goodwill towards all beings, and the practice of harmlessness, that you have the intention or the thinking or the thought of being disinterested in causing harm to others. Because if you cause others harm, harm will come back to you. Now, as you heard me share, it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. And that's true for other people too. You're not causing your mom and dad to be angry or frustrated. You're not causing your brothers and sisters to be angry or frustrated. So you can't cause others to be discontent, but you can cause them harm. Causing someone harm is to cause harm to their physical body, to their material possessions, or their reputation.
If you cause harm to someone's physical body, their material possessions or their reputations, you're going to experience harm coming back to you. So by you being disinterested in causing harm and you practicing harmlessness, that intention of harmlessness, now you're not going to be putting out harm, so harm won't come back to you. So let me see, do you guys have any questions on this wisdom section? Anything you guys would like to ask? Okay, I don't see any questions. Okay, so now we'll move into the moral conduct section, because once you build the foundation of the wisdom to realize it's your own mind that's causing these feelings and that unwholesome moral conduct that you've had in the past where you're arguing and you're bitter and harsh and hostile, you start to realize that's very unwise. I'm sure you've been in arguments where you've been adamantly trying to convince them that they needed to stop doing what they're doing, or else you're going to continue to get angry and frustrated. But if you've penetrated into the Four Noble Truths, you can see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, and you realize that it's unwise to continue to be bitter and harsh and hostile to people, and that that's coming from your own mind. And there is this better way of life that the Buddha taught. It's not rules or commandments. It's not a religion or anything like that. What the Buddha is teaching you is he's teaching you the natural law of karma. This natural law of karma is cause and effect, or action and result. Some of you might have heard this referred to as karma. This is the Sanskrit version of this word, where the original teachings of the Buddha are in the Pali language. So people who study those will typically use the word karma. This isn't anything mystical or magical. It's not punishments and rewards. It's not about who's to blame or who's at fault. It's to be able to see the causes and conditions, the certain decisions that you make that lead to any particular result that you experience. Because if you can understand this natural law, then you can navigate the world peacefully, because you understand what's leading to any particular result that you experience. So for example, if I was walking down the beach and the wind was blowing in my face and I'm kicking up sand, well, when that sand's blowing back in my face, if I think that this is good luck or bad luck or destiny or fate, or that it's God or some entity called the universe, or that it's other people that are causing these difficulties and struggles, then I never cultivate the wisdom to make better decisions, and I keep experiencing the unwholesome results over and over and over and over and over again. But what the Buddha is teaching you is this cause and effect of what's leading to any particular result that you're experiencing in your day-to-day life. And now that empowers you to be able to change anything that you're experiencing in your life. Because if there's anything that you don't particularly care for that's going on in your life, all you need to do is cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and you'll experience different results. So he's going to teach you the moral conduct of how to interact with people in a wise way that's going to produce wholesome results for you. So it's important that you don't see this as rules or commandments or anything like that, or that the Buddha is trying to convince you to be a certain way. Instead, what he's helping you to do is see the wise decisions that's going to lead to harmonious relationships for you. And it's going to help you to eliminate these pollutions out of the mind that the Buddha discovered during his lifetime and that he was able to eliminate for himself. Because what he's teaching you is how he got to this peaceful and joyful mental state. And if you're interested in that, then you can learn it. And if you're not, then the Buddha's not going to teach you, right? So it's up to you to decide that this is what it is that you would like to learn. But he's not trying to convince you of anything, and neither am I. We're just sharing with you this natural law so you can see the truth for yourself. So he teaches right speech. He says, in what, monks, is right speech? Refraining from lying, refraining from slander, refraining from harsh speech, refraining from frivolous speech. This is called right speech. So here he's talking about 4 things that would be unwise to speak in this way. When you're lying, there are certain cravings, desires, attachments that the mind has. There's something the mind wants, and it feels like if it tells the truth, it's not going to get it. So it ends up lying. So when you lie, people discover those lies. You can think back to when we were children and maybe we lied a lot and we experienced unwholesome results. People will find out in our personal and professional relationships, and now we will experience unwholesome karma as part of that. So by eliminating lying, now you can build up your life based in truth, and you can be seen as dependable, reliable, and trustworthy. If you've ever done a lot of lying, you probably remember how your mind was, trying to keep your lies straight. We might have told mom and dad one thing and, our grandparents another thing and our brothers and sisters something else. And now we had to keep all that straight and our mind was trying to figure all that out. How could you ever get to peace and joy if you continue to lie? So that's why the Buddha teaches that it's unwise to lie, so that now you can build harmonious relationships with the people around you. Then he teaches to eliminate slander. What slander is where you're gossiping and slandering certain people or an organization or a company or something like this. If you gossip and slander people, you're causing harm to their reputation, and now that harm is going to come back to you. This is based in craving, desire, attachment, where the mind's longing, yearning, and wanting something. Typically what the mind's doing is it wants to look good for yourself, or you're wanting to cause harm to other people. It's kind of like an individual walks into a dark room and everybody's got a candle, and the mind thinks, if I put out everybody else's candle, my candle will shine brighter, right? But that's not true. We're in a dark room. We'd like everybody's candle to shine bright. So by putting out everybody else's candle, it doesn't make your candle shine brighter. So at the height of this, if you went around gossiping and slandering people in different organizations and things, you can actually be killed. You can be murdered. That's the unwholesome Gama here, right? The Buddha's helping you to see this. He's not teaching you the way the world should be. He's teaching you the way the world is. And if you go around damaging people's reputation, there's going to be harm that comes to you. Like I mentioned, at the height of this, you can be murdered or killed. At the very least, if you're gossiping and slandering with people, you get them used to gossiping and slandering. And when you go away and your back is turned, they're going to be gossiping and slandering about you. So if you're interested in people not gossiping and slandering about you, you're going to need to eliminate your gossip and slander, where you're not doing that with other people. Then the Buddha teaches you to refrain from harsh speech. This is your tone, tempo, and word choice, how you choose to interact with people. When you have craving, desire, attachment, wants, and expectations, you'll have a certain amount of bitterness and hostility in your mind. And that's just damaging your relationships. So you would like to clean that up to the point where you're paying attention to your tone, your tempo, and your word choice, making wise decisions about how you interact with people. And you might need to look at the different languages that you speak, because some of you speak more than one language, and you're going to need to find what are those words and phrases that you can use that is a practice of gentle speech through your tone, tempo, and word choice. You'll find this to be the most difficult in the relationships where you're the closest, because those are the relationships that you have craving, desire, attachment. Your parents, your siblings, your life partner, your children, people like this. Oftentimes people think they're the problem, right? And I'm sure they're having some challenges in their life, but that harsh speech that you're having, it's coming from your own mind, because there's certain wants and expectations that you have. You want this person to be a certain way. And now you might think that if you're bitter and harsh with them, that they'll change and do things your way. But it's just damaging your relationships. So you would like to pay attention to your tone, tempo, and word choice to speak gentle. Then there's frivolous speech. I don't know if you've ever been this person or if you've ever been around this type of person where it's just kind of like, yada 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 a yada 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 a yada yada yada. It's not really a conversation. It's more like broadcast, right? They're broadcasting to you and you're just like, oh my gosh, when is this person going to let me talk, right? So you're not interested in being that person, right? There's an underlying craving there that the person has. They're not speaking purposeful. They're not speaking beneficially. And now people look at them and being less influential, they push them away. So you're not interested in being that person. You would like to create space for a conversation and a discussion. So these are things that are all based in craving, desire, attachment. And if you eliminate them and you speak in the way that the Buddha is guiding you to, you'll see improvement in your relationships. But then there's deeper level teachings that you would like to understand. Things like the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. This is going to help you get to even deeper level of detail. And I share this in this book. This is where I suggest that people start. Oops, not this book. The first book. This is Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. This you can get for free You can download it from our website. You can take it and go print it. You can get printed versions here by reimbursing us for the printing cost, or you can get it on Amazon. And this is going to help you to be able to understand these 5 factors of well-spoken speech. I typically teach them very thoroughly in a class like this, but just based on the time that we have today, I'm not going to go through them in a lot of detail. Some of them I've actually already talked about up here. But one of them that I will share with you is this one, speaking at the proper time. This is a challenging one for a lot of people. Speaking at the proper time is to make sure that you're not interrupting people, because you have a certain craving where you're jumping in there and stepping on people to be able to talk. Or speaking at the proper time is to make sure that your mind is prepared to talk. If you're angry and frustrated or irritated or annoyed, it's not the proper time for you to talk. The only thing that's going to come out is anger and hostility, and you're going to damage your relationships. And the third aspect of speaking the proper time is making sure the other person, it's the proper time for them to speak. Because if they're angry and frustrated and bitter and harsh, you're not going to be able to have a wonderful conversation there. So there's teachings like this that the Buddha is sharing with you, and I got it all detailed in the book. And the more you dial this in closer and closer, you'll get to the point where you can be very influential and you can have very harmonious relationships. By the time you get to enlightenment, all your relationships are harmonious. So while we call this right speech, because that's what was going on during the lifetime of the Buddha, we might actually think about this as right communication. Because we have a lot more than just speech today, that there's more than just speaking verbally, that we actually communicate through things like text messages, emails, social media posts, and all these different ways. Whereas if you were to just speak with right speech, you wouldn't actually be able to fully experience wholesome results in your day-to-day life. So for example, if you went to a job interview and you knocked it out of the park and you had all this great right speech, but they went and looked at your social media and they saw you were bitter and harsh and hostile, you're probably not going to get the job, right? Or say you went over to your keyboard and you're pounding on your keyboard. It's not the proper time to talk. You're angry and frustrated, agitated. You're pounding on your keyboard, right? This isn't the proper time to talk. So maybe hit save on that email instead of send. Because as soon as you hit send and it goes out into the world, now you're going to produce unwholesome results for yourself. So we can think of this as right communication. Okay, so there's more that you can learn about this. I'm just kind of giving you guys a bit of an overview here. Then there's right action. Right action, the Buddha is talking about not causing harm through your bodily actions. Because if you put harm out through your bodily actions, this harm is going to come back to you. That's the natural law of karma. He says, in what, monks, is right action? Refraining from taking life, refraining from taking what is not given, refraining from sexual misconduct. This is called right action. So here he's just giving you 3 really big, impactful ones, but he's not giving you an exhaustive list. He wouldn't have been able to teach every single situation that you could potentially be in that would cause harm. Because notice he doesn't say, don't walk up to someone and punch them in the face. Right? He doesn't say that. But if you understand this step, you can understand that's unwise. Because if you punch someone in the face, they're probably going to punch you back. Or their maybe friends and family are going to attack you, or they might pull out a gun or a knife and start attacking you with that, right? So it would be unwise to do that. Or notice that the Buddha doesn't say it would be unwise to roll your suitcase through the aisle of a plane, running over people's feet and bumping into their knees, because airplanes didn't even exist during his lifetime. So there's no way for him to create a comprehensive list of every single action that would cause harm. But if you understand this step, then you can apply it in all parts of your life. There's going to be more details on this when we get to chapter 7, which is 2 weeks from now, where I'm going to help students to understand the 5 precepts, where the Buddha expands on this. Because right here, this is just very general and very broad. Because things like sexual misconduct, someone might say, well, what is sexual misconduct? Well, in the 5 precepts, the Buddha talks about that. He talks about having sex with minors. He talks about having forcible sex where you don't have consent to have sex. He talks about having sex outside of relationships that you're in. He has all these different things that he shares. It's helpful to understand that he didn't teach that same gender relationships are harmful, because it's 2 loyal, loving, consenting adults choosing to have sex, and there's no harm there. So sometimes people think that maybe sexual misconduct includes that, and that's not actually true. That's how wise this individual is and was, that 2,500 years ago, he understood that same-gender relationships don't cause any harm. So if you're someone who has same-gender relationship, or you know someone who does, you're not actually causing any harm. If someone's getting angry or frustrated about your relationship, their mind's causing that themselves, because they have a craving for permanence. They want everybody to have sex with the opposite gender, and that's permanence. We don't live in that world. Some people are going to have sex with the opposite gender, but some people are going to have sex with the same gender. That's been going on since the beginning of humanity. There's never been a time where everybody had sex with the opposite gender. It just hasn't ever existed, because that would be a permanent world, and we don't live in that permanent world. We live in an impermanent world. So you can rest at ease if you have a same-gender relationship, or you know someone who does, and you'll get more details on this when we get to chapter 7 2 weeks from now. Then the Buddha teaches what's called right livelihood. What right livelihood is ensuring that you're not causing harm through your livelihood, the way you sustain your life, your occupation, and the way you acquire the basic resources to sustain your life. If you're causing harm through your livelihood, this harm is going to come back to you. So here in the Eightfold Path, he just says something very general and very broad. He says, in what, monks, is right livelihood? Here, monks, the noble disciple, having given up wrong livelihood, keeps himself by right livelihood. So he just says something very basic. But then you look at his other teachings, and he has 2 levels of training that you can employ in order to help you to understand what would be wise or unwise in terms of your livelihood. He has what's called the first fold of purification and the second fold of purification. I'm going to teach you the first fold of purification today, which is the first part is here, where he talks about these 5 livelihoods that would cause harm if you did these. And if you cause harm through the way you sustain your life, that harm is going to come back to you. So he talks about business and weapons, living beings, meat, substances that cause heedlessness, and poisons. So you need to be able to look at this and independently verify it. Because remember, none of his teachings are based in belief. So I'm just going to take one of these and show you how this works. Let's take substances that cause heedlessness. Let's just say I was standing on the street corner selling crystal methamphetamine and heroin into the community. Well, I'm causing harm to this community because these people are getting addicted to this drug, and they're actually going out and stealing and robbing and doing other things, maybe selling their body in order to be able to bring me money. So now I'm causing harm in the community. And standing on the street corner, I can easily get beat up. I can get murdered. I can get robbed. I can get arrested. I can get addicted to these substances myself. This is all the result of my decisions. It's not other people that are causing this. It's my decisions that are causing this. And that's the harm that's coming to me as a result of choosing to cause harm. But this natural law of Gotama functions at a much higher level than the laws of society. In certain countries, it would be legal for you to work, say, at a liquor store, right? You could go be a cashier at a liquor store. But if you understand the natural law of Gotama, you might decide that that's unwise because your government isn't going to arrest you for working at a liquor store. But if you understand that those are the places that people tend to rob, you can get beat up, you can get murdered, you at least are going to be dealing with intoxicated people throughout your day, and this isn't going to promote peace and joy in your day-to-day life. So the Buddha is teaching you a natural law that is much higher than the laws of society. The laws of society are imperfect because they're created by human beings and they're enforced by human beings. And human beings are prone to errors and mistakes. So the Buddha is teaching you a much higher law that is functioning at a much higher level than the laws of society. So you need to look at the laws that the Buddha is teaching you to be able to see the truth about the cause and effect of what you're experiencing in day-to-day life. So you might decide to look at your livelihood and see if it's any of these 5 and decide for yourself if you need to maybe move away from those. Then he teaches you how to perform your livelihood in a way that's going to promote success so that you can actually have a thriving livelihood and feel enthusiasm and ambition and motivation about the work that you do. Right now, if you're dragging yourself to work and you despise being there and you really don't like the work that you're doing, you're not in a right livelihood. You would like to get to a point where you thoroughly enjoy the work that you're doing and it doesn't even feel like work. And you're having nothing but success in what it is that you're doing. So he talks about eliminating scheming, flattering, hinting, belittling, and pursuing gain with gain. So what scheming is where you were corrupt. So if I was like a mayor of a town, I'm not causing any harm by being a mayor of a town. But if I was scheming and I was corrupt and I was doing backhanded deals, at some point people are going to find out about this. And then I'm going to be experiencing unwholesome results that now people aren't going to want to reelect me. And now I'm going to find it very difficult to support myself. So the Buddha teaches that it would be unwise to do that. Flattery is where you're just saying insincere comments to try to get people to buy things from you. If you've ever been to a store and you walked in and they're like, oh my goodness, that shirt looks so beautiful on you. It really brings out the colors of your eyes. It really accentuates the shape of your face. You know, I've got these beautiful earrings over here that'll really go well with that shirt. Would you like to see them? Right? This is what we call flattering, right? You might have experienced that and you were like, ugh, I don't even want to go in this store. It just doesn't feel right, right? So that's what the Buddha is teaching you, is that it's unwise to do that because you would like to create a livelihood where people are comfortable doing business with you, because people do business with people. They don't do business with businesses. They do business with people. And if you have a healthy relationship with your customers, you'll be able to do wonderful business and be able to see your careers expand and be built up. So the Buddha teaches you to eliminate flattery. Hinting is where you're unclear about your work. Where, say, like all of us are on a project team and we need to go brief the boss about the project that we're working on. Well, if we're just hinting around and we're not very clear and concise about what we're doing, we're not going to be very successful in that livelihood. So the Buddha teaches you to be clear and concise in your livelihood and communicate wisely. Then he teaches you to eliminate belittling. If you're belittling, that means you're degrading and diminishing the people around you through your spoken words. And if you're doing that with your customers, your coworkers, your business partners, your competition, and people like this, it's going to damage your career. Or sometimes people think if you belittle and degrade your competition, that it makes you look good, where in reality it actually doesn't. So you would like to speak in a way that doesn't do that. So if somebody asks you a question about your competition, all you need to do is say things like, well, I'm not really quite sure what they do 100% because I don't work there, but this is what I can do for you. Just talk about what you can do for that person rather than degrading what these other people do. Then the Buddha teaches you to not pursue gain with gain. What this is that you're just chasing after money, and that's all you care about. You just take the job because of money. And if you've ever had that kind of job where you were just showing up for the paycheck, initially you were really excited about that job because you were getting a lot more money. But then after a while, that wore off and you were unmotivated and unenthusiastic about going to that job. You probably felt like you were dragging yourself to work each day. Probably felt like a dead-end job, right? The Buddha is teaching you how to have enthusiasm and ambition in the work that you're doing. You might actually see people like this here in Thailand. Whereas if you go out on the street and you walk down the street, you might see somebody selling mango and sticky rice. They might have woke up this morning and went into their mango grove and picked each little individual mango and put them in their basket and brushed them off and cleaned them up and brought them to the market. And now they're standing there slicing their mango with a big smile on their face, putting it over top of the sticky rice and pouring that warm coconut milk over it. And they're handing it to you with a big smile on their face. And they're collecting their little 40 baht, right? And that 40 baht doesn't even matter to them. What's really important is they just enjoy serving that mango and sticky rice to you. They can't imagine doing anything else other than serving you that mango and sticky rice. So what you need to be able to do in order to have a right livelihood is you need to find your mango and sticky rice. What is your mango and sticky rice? What is it that's going to have you feel so enthused and motivated and ambitious to do this work that the money doesn't even matter? That, of course, you need a certain amount of money in order to sustain your life, but that's not why you're doing this livelihood. That's what you would like to get to in order to get to a right livelihood. And if you're not in that kind of job right now, you can change. You can make a different decision and you can experience different results. So if you're either in between work right now, or if you're in a livelihood that you don't particularly care for, you might decide to look at volume 12, chapter 14 of our book series, because in there, you're going to see not only the first fold of purification, but you're going to see the second fold as well. And this will help you to be able to be guided towards making wise decisions about your livelihood. Because it's no fun dragging yourself to work each day and despising the work that you do each day. You would like to have enthusiasm and ambition and thoroughly enjoy what it is that you're doing. So this is the moral conduct section: right speech, right action, and right livelihood. And just as a little bit of a summary, the right speech is to make sure that your verbal conduct doesn't have any harm, that your all your communication, whether it's verbal, text, chat, post, emails, all of this should be harmless, where you're not causing harm to others through the way that you interact with your communication. And there's lots of details there to be able to help you understand how to do that. And then the same thing with your actions, that you're not interested in causing harm through your bodily actions. And the Buddha gives you some details on this, but he's not giving you an exhaustive list. You need to apply it to all parts of your day and the way that you interact with your body. And then he gives you details on how to perform a livelihood that is harmless as well. And you would like to look at this, and this is what's going to promote improvement in your day-to-day life, so you can see the cause and effect with this natural law of karma. So do you guys have any questions on the moral conduct section? Yes, ma'am. Not yet. I can hear you, but not through the mic. You just need to be patient with them. They're Buddhist microphones. There you go.
Hi, I have a question about the right speech. Sorry, actually two questions. One is about if someone is manipulative, like gaslighting.
Mm-hmm.
It can be very confusing. It's very difficult to tell.
Mm-hmm.
And you also mentioned about we need to be responsible for our own feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, how would you protect yourself and how would you differentiate it?
Okay, so this whole idea of gaslighting isn't actually true. The world has all these different things that they talk about that isn't true reality. Like people talk about setting boundaries, people talk about gaslighting, people talk about all these kinds of things, but it's not actually true. If you're wise, nobody can quote unquote gaslight you, right? Because what people say is, people are being manipulative or what have you, but you're only interested in making decisions based in truth. So if somebody's sharing something with you or somebody's saying something to you, you should never just accept that on face value, but instead you need to be able to see the truth. And now, no matter what this person is saying, they can't make you feel crazy or manipulated, or they can't coerce you into doing anything, because anything that you decide in the world is your own decisions. So the whole idea of gaslighting is actually wrong view, because in this situation, an individual is blaming somebody else for the things that they experience. Or the idea of boundaries, for example, that people talk about. That's like going around the world and try to teach other people how to do things your way. And you'll never actually be successful with this. So if you take responsibility for your own decisions and what you're deciding, now whatever somebody's telling you, whatever they're sharing with you, you make sure that you get to the truth, to understand what is the truth, and you don't make any decisions until you know what the truth is. And if somebody is speaking to you in an unwise way, then with this wisdom of what wise speech is, you'll be able to see that. And now you can make decisions for yourself that are going to promote wholesome results for you.
That's helpful. Thank you. So it's all about taking responsibility for ourselves. A second question is around this concept of white lies. Especially, I think it's quite common in Asian families. And give you an example. For example, if someone in the family is sick, maybe the people might decide to withhold that information from older, maybe grandparents, in order to protect them. I guess I'm just curious about how that falls under what we're talking about here.
Sure. There's several things to talk about here. There's also no such thing as a white lie, right?
Yeah,
because
the concept.
What we think that there's, quote unquote, a good lie, right? So whenever we lie, it's causing harm, and it's causing harm to one's own mind, because we'd like to always be able to speak the truth. So sometimes people think that it's good to lie in this situation. But in that example that you gave, it's not actually protecting grandma and grandpa, because if grandma and grandpa get angry or frustrated about the fact that, or sad or grieved at the fact that somebody's sick, you can't protect them from that, because it's their own mind that's actually causing that. It's their craving for this person to be permanently healthy, when in reality, people can't be permanently healthy. It's not possible. But what somebody does is they think that their words are what's causing grandma and grandpa to be sad or grieving or worried or having anxiety or stress. And they think that if they don't say those words, that then it won't cause grandma or grandpa to be worried or upset. Where in reality, it's their own craving. So it's actually helpful for grandma and grandpa to understand that this person is sick, so that they can learn that this person is not permanent. With that said, I will also share that speaking the truth doesn't always mean you share everything that you know, unless you're in like a court of law or something like this, right? So this is an example that students sometimes come up with. They say, what if I was in World War II and I was living in, Nazi Germany, and there was a person who came and ran into my house who was Jewish, and they're hiding underneath of the bed. And now a Nazi soldier shows up and says, where's Barbara, right? Am I supposed to say, in order to speak the truth, oh, she's under my bed, you can go get her over there? Well, obviously that would be unwise, right? Because now it's going to create a situation where somebody could potentially get killed. So instead, speaking the truth doesn't mean you always say everything you know. What I would do in that situation is I'll be like, oh, you're looking for Barbara? How about if we go look in the woods? Let's go, I'll help you. Let's go see if we can find Barbara. I'll go look in the woods with you, right? And now you're redirecting them away from where Barbara actually is. So I don't have to say, Barbara's under the bed. I don't have to share everything I know in order to be able to speak the truth. I can say, oh, you're looking for Barbara? Let's go look in the woods. I'll help you. Right. And now this soldier is maybe redirected to the woods. So you don't have to always say everything you know. So if someone's choosing not to tell grandma and grandpa about somebody being unhealthy, that's not going to protect their mind, because their mind is experiencing the stress and anxiety because of their craving. That's not going to protect grandma and grandpa. But still, looking at the situation, it could potentially be unwise to tell grandma and grandpa about someone who is sick. Maybe grandma and grandpa are sick themselves, and hearing this news would create further sickness for them. And it would be wise to not share that information potentially. Each situation is different. The Buddha's not going to give you a decision tree that if this happens, do that, and if this happens, do that, because that would be a permanent answer for every situation. But instead, moving to this higher consciousness, we can think through the situation and decide whether or not it would be wise or unwise to be able to share with grandma and grandpa that this person is sick. So if grandma and grandpa asked us a question and we said, no, they are healthy, that would be a lie. But if they said, how is this person in the family? We could say, we can say something else without saying, they are healthy, which would be a lie. We could say something else, and maybe that would then not share this information with them, but it wouldn't be a lie. We're still speaking the truth. So whether grandma and grandpa gets this information or not, that's a decision that each person needs to make in the situation, and it's going to be unique in each situation. So you need to take in the variables to be able to see what would be wise or unwise, but it's important to not see telling a lie as protecting grandma and grandpa, because if they're going to experience grief and sorrow and sadness, it's going to come from their own craving. It's not coming from these words.
Yeah, so just to clarify, I think there are two elements. One is about not sharing something and telling a lie, actively telling a lie. And the other aspect is about they are responsible for their own emotions, or if I think they're already very frail, that it might physically harm them, like that can be something that comes into the consideration as well.
Yeah, and that's what it means to move to this higher consciousness and be awake, is that you consider all these things. And if grandma is really attached to her son, for example, and hearing this, that her son has been in a terrible car accident, grandma is going to experience a lot of stress and anxiety, and she's maybe, close to death herself, then maybe it would be unwise to share it with her in that situation. And maybe it's better to not share it. And that's not telling a lie. That's just choosing not to share all the information, right? That's different than telling a lie. But then in another situation, you could have another older person who's in fine health, and it would be wise to maybe share that information. So that's why the Buddha's not telling you, giving you a decision tree of if this happens, do this, because that would be a permanent answer for every situation, where we understand the world is impermanent and you need to think through any situation that you're experiencing and now make the wise choice. And you will make that wise choice when your own mind doesn't have the pollution and it's not shaken up with discontentedness.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello. I have a question about right livelihood. I generally agree with everything that was said, but I feel like perhaps there's maybe a fallacy of choice at the base of it, because I think many people in this world can't always decide their livelihood, maybe due to their economic status or the economy which they grew up in. There are also issues of things like forced criminality, where people are forced into selling drugs or doing something else, maybe for the sake of their own family. So in situations like that, how does one navigate? Is there actual choice involved?
Yeah. So we all have free will. We're not forced into anything whatsoever. There's only one thing in the world that we actually absolutely have to do is die. That's it. That's the only thing that we have to do. Everything else is optional. We're making choices about our own life. So if our family is impoverished and we're choosing to go sell drugs and we think that that's a solution, that person isn't being forced to go sell drugs in order to help their family. They're making a choice to do that. And the mind is craving, I want this income now, and the mind's going in this direction to do that. So there's never a forced choice. Everything is based in free will. The only thing we have to do is actually die. And the more that you see that, now you can make wise decisions. And while it might take you longer to build skills and build wisdom and find a job that is going to be wholesome, it might take you longer. But if you don't have craving, desire, attachment, and you're not chasing, you'll be willing to do that work. And now you'll have wiser decisions that is going to be a more stable income, because doing that work where we're selling drugs, for example, to help our family out of poverty, we're not actually really helping them, because we can easily get killed, right? And now we're not going to be able to help our family. Or we're easily going to get arrested and go to jail, and now we can't help our family. So the mind's craving is going to produce unwholesome decisions, which is going to lead to unwholesome results. And now we actually end up not being able to accomplish what we set out to accomplish. So when we come to understand that we have free will and we need to restrain our mind and make wise decisions to cultivate wisdom and build a sustainable, stable life, now we can actually move in the direction that's truly going to help our family, instead of living in what the Buddha refers to as delusion or confusion or misunderstanding. Because when we have wisdom and we see the natural law, now we can actually make wise decisions, and it will actually truly accomplish the goals that we've set out for.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Oh, Martha, yep.
I'm trying to understand the whole kind of concept, and I'm thinking where generosity fits. If the teachings about generosity from Buddha, do they fit in the right action, or like it's something out of the, like, because it must be a part of Eightfold Path, right? Or?
Yeah, the generosity is a wholesome mental state that you need to cultivate in order to train your mind to let go. And that's where the mental discipline section comes in, is that as I teach this, you probably remember there's certain unwholesome qualities in the mind, and there's certain wholesome qualities that you need to bring into the mind. That's where generosity fits, because you need to cultivate that mental state of practicing generosity.
It's a way of practice somehow, generosity for that mental state.
Yeah,
right?
It's a mental state. There is an action, of course, that is correlating with that, but it's all coming from the mind. Without that mental state of generosity, you would never actually practice the action.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Okay, so now we're going to move into the mental discipline section, which is going to help you guys to now understand how to bring in the moral conduct. Because it's one thing to sit here and talk about all these great things about being loving and kind and having gentle speech and not talking to your family in bitter and harsh ways, but it's a whole nother thing to be able to do it, right? Because you can get together like this and be like, yeah, let's go out and be loving and kind and warm and gentle with people. But then you go outside and your mind's fighting with all these pollutions that are in there, and it's very hard for you to interact with your people who are close to you and be loving and kind. So that's where the mental discipline section comes in. So here's the Buddha's teachings on what's called right effort. He says, in what, monks, is right effort? Here, monks, a monk rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to prevent the arising of unarisen, evil, unwholesome mental states. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to overcome evil, unwholesome mental states that have arisen. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to produce unarisen, wholesome mental states. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to maintain wholesome mental states that have arisen, not to let them fade away, to bring them to greater growth, to the full perfection of development. This is called right effort. So he's talking about applying effort for these 4 things here. And I've actually broke it down here, and I'm going to use examples to help you understand how to implement this. The first one, he's talking about preventing unwholesome mental states from coming into the mind. There are certain unwholesome mental states that are not currently in your mind right now. A good example of that is like killing another human being. You probably have no interest in killing another human being. It's probably the farthest thing from your mind right now. There's those kinds of things and others that are not in your mind, and the Buddha is saying you need to apply the effort to prevent that from ever coming into your mind. Because if you allow it to come into your mind, you might actually take action on it, and now it's going to produce unwholesome results for you. Then any unwholesome qualities that are currently in your mind, you're going to need to abandon those, because there are certain unwholesome qualities in every unenlightened mind, and you're going to need to apply the effort to eliminate those. So an example might be, like, let's just say you're in an existing relationship and you have a craving for sex outside of your existing relationship. You know that that's unwholesome and you would be unwise to act upon it. So if you see that unwholesome mental state in your mind, you'd like to apply the effort to eliminate that out of your mind. Or anger and frustration and irritation, as you notice that unwholesome quality coming into your mind. You could easily act upon that and it's going to produce unwholesome results. So you're going to need to apply the effort to eliminate that out of the mind. Then there's produce unarisen wholesome mental states to arise in the mind. There are certain wholesome mental states that you're going to need in order to get to enlightenment that are not currently in your mind right now. A good example of that is generosity. Generosity is something that you learn about giving and sharing without any expectation of anything in return, such as your time, effort, energy, and resources. This is going to train your mind to let go. Because with craving, desire, attachment from right view, the Four Noble Truths, your mind's holding on and craving permanence. And you need to be able to train it to let go. And that's what generosity is helping you to do. Because the mind's going to be somewhat selfish in the unenlightened state, and it's going to want to hold on to things very tightly. My food, my money, my clothes, mine. But you're going to need to practice generosity where you're living open-handedly and you're willing to share with others. So if you're noticing that you have a certain amount of selfishness in your mind and it's hard for you to share, you're going to need to apply the effort to bring this into the mind. And then this maintaining wholesome mental states that have arisen, not allowing them to fade away, and work to increase their growth in the mind, bringing them to the full perfection and full development. There are certain wholesome mental states that are actually in your mind right now. In certain situations, you'll have that, but they haven't necessarily been brought to full growth, full perfection, and full development. For example, this sympathetic joy. What this is the joy for others' success, even if you didn't contribute to it. This is the opposite of jealousy or envy. So in some situations, you might actually have sympathetic joy, where someone might come to you and say, hey, I'm thinking about going to Thailand. I was going to schedule a trip about 6 months from now. And you're like, oh, I've been to Thailand. That's a wonderful place. You know, there's this lady that sells mango and sticky rice. She's on the corner. You might actually enjoy going to see her. right? And you're really happy for them that they're actually going to Thailand. But then in another situation, say you're at work and now a new position opens up and you apply for it and some of your coworkers do too. And now they get the job instead of you. You might notice jealousy or envy coming up in the mind, especially as they're gloating and conceited and walking around the office thinking they're so great, right? You might notice this jealousy coming up in your mind. Well, that's because your sympathetic joy hasn't been brought to full growth, full perfection, and full development. You're going to need to apply the effort to bring this sympathetic joy up into your mind, where you have joy for their success, even though you didn't contribute to it, because it's your craving, desire, attachment that's causing your jealousy. It's, I really wanted that job and I didn't get it, and now they got it, and now you're jealous, right? So this is what's going to help transform your mind away from some of these unwholesome qualities. So the first one is to prevent unwholesome qualities from coming into the mind. The second one is to eliminate the unwholesome qualities that are currently in your mind. The third one is to bring in wholesome qualities that are not currently in your mind. The fourth one is to support and encourage the wholesome qualities that are currently in your mind. The way I teach this to my young son is to kick out the unwholesome and bring in the wholesome. You need to apply the effort to do that. But you wouldn't be able to do that unless you actually practiced the next one. Okay? This next one is called right mindfulness. Right mindfulness is, in general, awareness of mind, where you just have general awareness of the mind. But more specifically, it's what's called the 4 foundations of mindfulness. That's what the Buddha is teaching here. I typically would read this, but you guys can read it. It's in the book, where he talks about that you need to have this reflection on body as body, where you're dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world, where you're reflecting on feelings, reflecting on the mind, reflecting on mental objects. There's these 4 things called the 4 foundations of mindfulness that the Buddha is teaching you. In general, you need to have awareness of mind, because oftentimes people aren't aware of their thoughts, ideas, their feelings, their emotions, the things that are going on in their mind. You're going to need to build that. And oftentimes this word mindfulness nowadays is being used in a way that the Buddha didn't use it. Whereas if you hear somebody say, "Can you mindfully carry this glass of water to the table?" That's not how the Buddha used it. What they're saying is, can you carefully carry this glass of water to the table? So whether they choose to use it that way or not is up to them, but you would like to bring your understanding of these teachings more and more close to what the Buddha taught, because that's what's actually going to lead to your enlightenment. So he taught it as awareness of mind. But more specifically, these 4 foundations of mindfulness, where you're aware of the bodily sensations, the feelings, the condition of the mind, and the mental objects. What he's talking about here is he's talking about the life cycle that your discontentedness is going to take as part of arising in your mind. When he's talking about bodily sensations, what he's talking about is, if you've ever noticed, before you get angry or shy or even pleasant feelings, there's some bodily sensations that are occurring. Before you get angry, you might notice some tingling in the body, some tightening in the chest, tightening in the throat, heat in the face, pressure in the skull. This is like an early warning system alerting you that you're about to get angry. You're about to get frustrated. And what the Buddha teaches you is to apply right effort to cut that off and let it go at the bodily sensations. You're not suppressing your feelings or repressing them. You're actually cutting it off and letting it go before it becomes a feeling. It's kind of like if you were in a boat and you were going from the UK to Canada and you're out in the middle of the ocean. You would like to prevent the water from ever coming into the boat. Because as soon as you allow the water to come into the boat, you've got a real problem to deal with. You've got to get this water out of the boat. So you would like to prevent the mind from ever experiencing that feeling of anger. Because as soon as you allow it to experience it, you've got to get it out. So what these bodily sensations are, is it's an early warning system alerting you that you're about to get angry. It's kind of like the mind saying, I'm about to get angry. I'm about to get angry. I'm about to get a conditioned feeling. I'm about to get a conditioned feeling here. And you're like, nope, not going to let you do that. And you cut it off and let it go. You restrain the mind. And if you do this enough over a consistent long-term period, anger will never arise in the mind, because you will have eliminated the causes and conditions that are producing it. But if you miss it as a feeling if you miss it as a bodily sensation, then it's going to become a feeling that the mind's going to experience the anger, the frustration. So if you missed it as a bodily sensation, cut it off as a feeling. But if you miss it as a feeling, it's then going to affect the condition of your mind. For a few minutes, a few hours, a few days, you're going to be grumpy and irritable. Have you ever been grumpy and irritable for a few days or a few weeks? Of course you have, right? Because you didn't know this. You didn't have this wisdom, right? So what you'd like to do is cut it off and let it go, not allow the mind to experience that. Because if you don't, then it's going to feed what's called a mental object. A mental object is a deeply rooted container in the mind, and there's these 10 individual mental objects. They're referred to as the 10 fetters. They're 10 individual pollutions that the Buddha discovered in the mind. So you would like to uproot those out of the mind. When we talk about purifying the mind, it's to purify the mind of the 10 fetters. So you're going to need to have awareness of what the symptoms of these 10 fetters are. And that's something that is shared in the teachings of the Buddha. So this is a little bit of the technical definition of how to understand the 4 foundations of mindfulness. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you a real world example of how to apply right effort and right mindfulness in your day-to-day life. So let's just say I'm watching the news and I'm kicked back and you're watching the news. And as you're watching the news, you see and hear something on the TV that your mind doesn't like. Your craving is getting triggered. And now you're noticing this tingling in the body, this tightening in the chest, tightening in the throat, heat in the face, pressure in the skull. You know you're about to get angry or frustrated. Well, instead of just sitting there and watching the news, turn it off. Go for a walk. Go for a bike ride. Go to the kitchen and get a glass of water. Go to the bathroom and wash your hands or something like this. Redirect the mind. So that's having right mindfulness, where you're aware of the arising of this discontentedness, and then you're applying right effort to cut it off and let it go by redirecting your mind. This is over time going to completely transform your mind, where you can get to the point that you can watch the news and you'll be completely calm and stable and steady. You'll still disagree with what's going on. You would prefer that that thing not be occurring in the world, but you understand that that's impermanence, that these things are occurring and you can't control the world and you can't fix the world to be a certain way, that there's 8 billion beings in the world making decisions and you can't stop people from making unwise decisions. It's their decision and you're just watching it and you're being able to understand what are the decisions that people are making, because that anger and frustration isn't actually helping you with anything at all. So you can get to the point where you can watch the news, but you just don't get angry and frustrated. So whenever you're noticing your mind experiencing the preliminary phases of potentially getting angry or frustrated or any of these other discontent feelings, you can redirect the mind and take it in a different direction, and that will cut it off and let it go. But then there's something more specific that you can do, which is described in this next step. This is right concentration. This is what the Buddha is describing in order to concentrate your mind, because you're going to need focus and clarity in order to be able to apply these teachings. You're not going to be able to bring forth your wisdom for something like right speech if you haven't cultivated your mind to have concentration and focus. So here the Buddha is describing in his parts of his teachings about how to practice right concentration, where you develop a meditation practice and you develop singleness of mind, where you just do one thing at a time. So that breathing mindfulness meditation that we did this morning, where we're focused on the breath, and anytime the mind moves off the breath, you cut that off and let it go and come back to the breath. That's training your mind to let go, let go, let go. The goal of this isn't to eliminate your thoughts. The goal is to notice them sooner and sooner and let them go easier and easier. And over time, that's going to help you to build focus and concentration, because you're training your mind to let go of that longing, yearning, and chasing. Then you'd also like to practice singleness of mind, where you're just doing one thing at a time. Anytime you notice your mind wandering, you would like to cut that off and let it go and come back. So your mindfulness is going to help you to develop the awareness of mind. It's your breathing mindfulness meditation that's going to help you to build that awareness of mind. It's like exercising your mind in day-to-day life so that now you can go out and use those qualities. But your singleness of mind is going to hone your mind to be able to do just one thing at a time. So if you're in a business meeting and you're thinking about your next trip to Thailand 3 months from now, and your mind's daydreaming, you'd like to cut that off and let it go and come back, because you need to focus on the business meeting. That's what's going to help you in that situation. Or if you're washing dishes and you notice your mind's wandering, you would like to cut that off and bring it back so you can just practice singleness of mind. And over time, your mind will just always be focused. When you first start, your mind's going to be bouncing around a lot. It's kind of like if you had a piece of wood and you had a steel rod and you were grinding it back and forth. Initially, it's going to bounce around a lot because there's no groove there yet. But if you grind it back and forth enough, you're going to get a nice groove going. And when it pops out, you're going to know that and you're going to bring it back. But if you grind that steel rod back and forth enough, you're going to get such a deep groove that it's never going to pop out. And that's what your mind can actually do. It has the capability of doing that if you practice singleness of mind. And this is going to produce wholesome results in your life. There's actually people right now that are dead that didn't understand practicing singleness of mind, that's what produces wholesome results in your day-to-day life. For example, if someone was walking down the street talking on the phone, they might have walked out in the middle of the street, whack, and now they're dead. Because they didn't understand singleness of mind. They were trying to do more than one thing at a time, where your mind actually can't do more than one thing at a time. This whole idea of multitasking, you're not actually doing multiple things at one time. You're doing one thing for 5 or 6 seconds. You're doing another thing for 8 seconds. You're doing another thing for 3 seconds. And your mind's rapidly cycling like this. And when you get home, you find it very challenging to be relaxed. It's just like a horse. If it was racing around a horse track and it goes to a barn, it's going to be hyped up because it was racing around the racetrack. So if you do this for 8, 10, 12 hours a day where you're racing around, trying to multitask, even though your mind can't do that, when you go home, you'll find it very challenging to relax. You'll find that you have a lot of stress and anxiety at the end of your day. So the Buddha is teaching you right concentration to be able to help you be focused and concentrated, and you can bring forth your wisdom to be able to apply it in your day-to-day life. So just as a little summary, and then I'll wrap up with some last questions, is this right effort is to apply initiative to eliminate unwholesome aspects of the mind and to cultivate wholesome qualities in the mind. Right mindfulness is to have awareness of mind, but more specifically, those 4 foundations of mindfulness, being aware of the bodily sensations, the feelings, the condition of the mind, and the mental objects. Then your right concentration is to develop your meditation practice on a consistent, ongoing basis, and to practice singleness of mind, where you're just doing one thing at a time. So let me know what questions you guys have here. Looks like Joe, you have a question?
Yeah, Mr. David, my question is about mindfulness. With the stages, the first stage would be body as body, but the cravings occurring in the mind. So how come the first stage wouldn't be the mental object?
Well, what happens is the craving is in the mind. And what you're experiencing is you're experiencing contact through the eyes, ears, nose, the tongue, the body, and then the mind itself. And as you experience that contact, the mind seeing it as either agreeable or disagreeable. And the very first thing that's going to happen as a result of that triggering is there's going to be bodily sensations. So you need to be able to cut that off and let it go. So by cutting that off and letting it go, you preserve the mind and you protect the mind. You're guarding the mind. That's the way the Buddha talks about mindfulness, is it's a guard for the mind. So you like to cut that off and let it go. But now after the mind has been freed of that and it doesn't have that arising, now you can start looking inward and you can start figuring out which of the fetters was it that got triggered here. And that's going to help you. You're going to need to have that awareness of what those fetters are. So now you can skillfully work to eliminate them. That's one part of it. The other part of it is some of these fetters actually don't produce bodily sensations. For example, conceit. There's typically not bodily sensations when your conceit gets triggered. And when you become conceited, where you're arrogant and prideful, the mind is measuring and comparing, looking down on certain people, the mind doesn't usually experience, this being doesn't usually experience bodily sensations. So you need to separately from the bodily sensations, the feelings, and the condition of the mind, you need to be aware of the mental objects so you know what the symptoms of them are so that you can see them in your mind when they're arising, and then you can apply right effort to cut them off and let them go, because they don't always produce bodily sensations, something like conceit.
Okay, great. Thank you. So ideally, as soon as the craving arises, cut off and let go.
Right. And you'll notice that as a bodily sensation. Sometimes you can notice it even before that. You can just notice the mind's pulling towards something and there hasn't been a triggering of it yet. It's just kind of like yearning, and you can restrain it and pull it back. And that's where your mindfulness is getting more developed.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yep, you're welcome. Okay, we have a question from Frank online. He says, on the Barbara example, what if the Nazi soldier asked, do you know where Barbara is? What would be the response that would keep right speech without harming Barbara? So I would do the same thing, is I would just say, oh, you're looking for Barbara? How about we look over at the woods? I'll help you. Let's go to the woods. So I wouldn't say exactly where Barbara is. I would just basically answer a question or make a statement that doesn't answer their question. I wouldn't answer their question. I would just say another statement that is going to redirect them in a different direction. And that way I'm not lying, and there's less potential for Barbara to get hurt as well. Okay. I don't see any other questions anywhere. So what I'm going to do is just end class by thanking all of you guys for joining. Thank you for your interest to learn and understand the teachings of the Buddha. And at the same time, I will share something with you that we do here about once every 3 months. And today is the day that we are doing this for this 3-month period, is we do something called Temple Cleanup Day. And you guys are welcome to join this if you like. What a temple is it's like the womb of a woman. That the womb of a woman is the very best place to learn and grow and develop. You actually become a better human being in the womb of a woman, right? Without the womb of a woman, none of us would actually be here. That's what allowed us to become a human being. Well, the temple is that. It's the womb of a woman. It allows us to become a better and better human being and grow and develop. And this womb is actually created by all of us choosing to care for the temple. So this temple doesn't belong to anybody, but yet it belongs to all of us, and we all take care of it. And here, our community is invested in taking care of this classroom, because the Thai people have entrusted us with this classroom to be able to share these teachings with all of you. But also, we feel that it's wise to help the wider temple community. So once every 3 months, we do kind of like a deep cleaning of our classroom, like a spring cleaning. And we also go outside and we clean the area outside, like the student lounge area. We even go outside and kind of sweep and pull some weeds and do things like this. We spend a little bit of time doing that. And if you guys would like to participate in that, you're more than welcome to. You don't have to. You're not required to. I'm not even asking you to. I'm just making it available for you if you would like to. So there's no expectation here that you will help. But if you would like to stick around and help, this temple is about 500 years old, and it needs a little bit of love and care every once in a while. So if you would like to stick around, we have different people that are going to be around helping out. I didn't talk to you guys beforehand, but normally Joe, Steve, Rachel, we usually coordinate ahead of time, and there's somebody that stays here in the classroom. There's somebody who kind of does the lounge student area, and then there's someone who goes outside and kind of does the other stuff. Do you guys have an idea if you would like to do that? What would you guys like? Okay, so if you guys would like to stick around, you can stick around here in the classroom, and there'll be somebody here that can guide you of where cleaning supplies are. If you'd like to go out to the vestibule area where the tables are, they're going to be using hoses and spraying water and having fun with that. And then usually I go outside to where the sweeping is and the pulling of the weeds and all that kind of stuff. So if you'd like to stick around, I really appreciate your generosity and your willingness to help us. If you're not sticking around, that's okay too. Perhaps you'd like to join a future class that we have here, either in person or online. And whatever you choose to do today, have a very lovely and wonderful rest of your day. Perhaps we'll see you next time. Take care. Sawadee krap. Sawadee krap.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.